I should have known better than to trust the silence. But when you've spent your whole life in a gilded cage, even the illusion of freedom tastes like oxygen. That's how I ended up on Highway 9 at midnight, pushing my Mercedes past 90 with the windows down and my father's warning calls lighting up my phone like a string of ignored fireworks. Just one night, I told myself. One night where I'm not Robert Spencer's carefully controlled asset. Where the weight of his expectations doesn't press against my lungs like a stone. The road stretched empty ahead, nothing but asphalt and moonlight and the illusion that I could outrun my last name. I didn't see the truck until its headlights filled my rear-view mirror. Didn't hear the grinding of metal until it was already too late. The impact came from behind. My world became spinning glass and screaming tires and the sickening crunch of metal folding like paper. The car left the road. I remember tumbling, the horrible weightlessness of falling, then the bone-jarring slam as we hit the embankment. Then fire. Orange and hungry, licking up from the engine. Smoke filled the crushed interior. I tried the door. Jammed. Tried again. Blood ran into my eye from somewhere. My leg was pinned beneath twisted metal. I was going to die in a car my father bought me. The irony would have made me laugh if I could breathe. That's when the door ripped open. Not unlocked. Ripped. Metal shrieking as someone tore it from its hinges with their bare hands. The meeting had gone poorly. But then, meetings with men who thought they could expand into Milano territory without consequence always went poorly. Stefano Milano checked his Patek Philippe as he walked toward his Maserati, already calculating how many hours until he could deal with the problem permanently. That's when he saw the glow. Not streetlights. Fire, blooming orange against the darkness down the embankment off Highway 9. His driver moved toward the car. Stefano held up a hand, already moving toward the guardrail. Below, a Mercedes hung at a sickening angle, flames spreading fast. Inside, a shadow moved. Still alive. He was down the embankment before his men could protest, dress shoes sliding on gravel, jacket abandoned somewhere behind him. The heat hit him first, then the smell of burning rubber and gasoline. The driver's door was crushed inward, but through the spider-webbed window, he saw her. Young. Dark hair matted with blood. Eyes wide with the kind of terror that comes when you realize you're about to die alone. Stefano grabbed the door frame and pulled. Metal screamed but held. He braced his foot against the car and pulled again, muscles straining, the fire growing hotter at his back. The door gave with a violent shriek. She stared at him through the smoke, blood running down her temple, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then recognition hit him like a fist to the gut. He knew that face. Had seen it in surveillance photos, in the background of intelligence reports, always carefully positioned behind bodyguards and tinted windows. Elsie Spencer. His enemy's most protected possession. The daughter Robert Spencer never let out of his sight. And she was trapped in a burning car on a deserted highway at midnight. Stefano reached in, his voice cutting through her panic. Don't fight me, ragazza. We don't have time. He freed her leg from the wreckage, felt her hand grip his shoulder as he pulled her out and into his arms. She weighed nothing. Felt fragile in a way that stirred something he'd thought he'd buried years ago. He carried her away from the flames, past the point where heat seared skin, and laid her on the cool grass. She looked up at him, green eyes struggling to focus, blood on her lips. I know who you are, he said quietly, brushing broken glass from her hair with careful fingers. And you know who I am. Her father's enemy. The man she'd been trained to fear since childhood. Why? She whispered. Stefano stood, his shadow falling across her like a claim. Behind him, the Mercedes exploded, sending sparks into the night sky. Because now you owe me, he said. And I always collect my debts. Consciousness returned in fragments. First softness, Egyptian cotton against my skin, so different from the twisted metal and broken glass my body remembered. Then warmth, the kind that came from actual sunlight, not flames. Finally pain, a dull throb at my temple, sharper aches in my ribs and leg. I opened my eyes to unfamiliar luxury. The bedroom was massive, all cream walls and dark wood furniture that screamed old money. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens, and beyond them, rolling Tuscan hills bathed in morning light. Definitely not New Jersey. Definitely not a hospital. My breath caught. Where the hell was I? I tried to sit up. My body protested with a symphony of complaints, but nothing felt broken. Bruised, battered, but intact. I was wearing clothes that weren't mine, soft cotton pajamas, expensive, perfectly sized. Someone had undressed me, cleaned my wounds. The thought sent ice through my veins. The door opened without warning. Stefano Milano entered like he owned not just the room but the very air inside it. He probably did. Gray slacks, black dress shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing those tattoos I'd glimpsed through smoke and terror. He carried a breakfast tray of all things, moving with the kind of controlled grace that made predators beautiful. "You're awake." His voice was smoke and gravel, accented in a way that made simple words sound like threats or promises. "Good. The doctor said you'd sleep through the night." "Doctor?" My voice came out hoarse. "What doctor? Where am I?" "My home. My physician." He set the tray on the bedside table, espresso, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like heaven. "You had a concussion, cracked rib, lacerations. Nothing life-threatening, but you needed rest." I stared at him, my mind racing through implications. "You brought me to your house. You didn't take me to a hospital." "Hospitals ask questions. File reports." He pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, completely at ease. "Your accident would have made interesting news. Spencer's daughter, alone on Highway 9 at midnight, fleeing something or someone." Heat crept up my neck. He'd seen through me that easily. "So you just decided to kidnap me instead? Kidnapping implies you had better options." His dark eyes held mine, unflinching. "You were dying in a burning car, Elsie. I gave you a choice the moment I pulled you out, live or die. You chose life. Everything after that is just details." The casual use of my first name felt invasive. Intimate. I pushed back against the pillows, needing distance even if I couldn't leave the bed. "My father has been informed you're alive and recovering." Stefano's expression didn't change. "I called him myself. 2 hours after I pulled you from the wreckage." My stomach dropped. "You called Robert Spencer. You told my father you have me." "I told him I saved you. There's a difference." He leaned forward slightly, forearms resting on his knees. "Though I imagine he's struggling to decide which is worse, that you nearly died, or that you owe your life to a Milano." I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was wrong about my father, that Robert Spencer would be grateful, relieved, decent. But we both knew better. I'd grown up in that house, learned to read every shift in his mood, every calculation behind his eyes. Stefano was right. My father would see this as a stain, a weakness, a debt that compromised the family name. "What do you want?" The question came out sharper than intended. "You didn't save me out of kindness. Men like you don't do anything without a reason." Something flickered across his face, amusement, maybe, or respect. "Men like me. Mafia bosses. My father's enemies. Killers." I met his gaze, refusing to look away first. "I know what you are, Stefano Milano. Everyone knows. So tell me, what's your angle? What's the plan? Use me as leverage? Trade me back to my father for territory? Or just keep me here until he makes a mistake trying to get me back?" Stefano stood, moving to the windows with that same predatory grace. Sunlight caught the silver at his temples, the hard lines of his profile. He was beautiful the way storms were beautiful, dangerous and magnetic and entirely beyond control. You think very little of yourself, he said finally, still facing the window. If you believe your only value is as a pawn. I've been a pawn my whole life. At least I'm honest about it. He turned then, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Not anger. Something deeper. Something that felt like recognition. You owe me a debt, Elsie Spencer. That's not a metaphor. Not a negotiation. You were dead. I made you alive again. In my world, that means something. What kind of debt? The kind I'll define when I'm ready. He moved back to the chair, sat with deliberate slowness. Until then, you'll stay here. Recover. Learn what it means to exist outside your father's cage. Panic spiked through the pain medication, still fuzzing my thoughts. You can't just keep me here. Can't I? His smile was razor sharp. Your father knows where you are. Knows you're safe. If he truly wanted you back, he'd have sent an army already. But he hasn't. Want to know why? I didn't. I did. I couldn't speak. Because right now, having his daughter under Milano protection is more valuable than having you home. It makes him look weak. Makes him look like he can't protect his own family. And Robert Spencer would rather you stay here, alive and useful as a chess piece, than risk the optics of begging me to return you. The words hit like physical blows. True. All of it true. I'd always known my father was calculating, but hearing it stated so plainly, so casually, made something crack inside my chest. You're a bastard, I whispered. Yes. Stefano stood, headed for the door. But I'm the bastard who saved your life. Eat. Rest. We'll discuss your debt when you're stronger. He paused at the threshold, looked back. And Elsie? Don't try to leave. My men have orders to keep you safe. That means keeping you here. For now. The door closed with a soft click. I stared at the breakfast tray, at the gardens beyond the windows, at the beautiful cage I'd traded for my father's. The Mercedes had burned on Highway 9. But somehow, I was the one who'd walked into the fire. 3 days in a gilded cage taught me more about my value than 24 years as Robert Spencer's daughter ever had. I learned it from the whispers that carried through marble hallways when staff thought I was sleeping. From the tense phone conversations Stefano conducted in rapid Italian behind closed doors. From the way his men looked at me, not with desire, but calculation, like I was a bomb they weren't sure had been armed or disarmed. The news had spread fast. In the underworld, information moved like blood through water, impossible to contain once spilled. Stefano Milano has Spencer's daughter. By the second morning, I was strong enough to leave the bedroom. My ribs still ached with every breath, and a purple bruise bloomed across my cheekbone, but I refused to stay confined. Stefano hadn't explicitly forbidden me from exploring, and I'd learned young that what wasn't forbidden was fair game. The villa was a fortress disguised as paradise. Ancient stone walls, modern security systems hidden behind Renaissance art. Armed men at every entrance, though they dressed well enough to pass as staff. I mapped exits out of habit. The architect in me couldn't help but notice the flow of space, the strategic positioning of rooms, the way every beautiful thing doubled as a defensive measure. I was in the library, because of course Stefano Milano had a library that rivaled my father's, when I heard them. 2 of his men, talking in the hallway just beyond the half-open door. They spoke in English, probably assuming I was still upstairs. Boss is playing with fire. The first voice was gravelly, older. Spencer's already made 3 calls. Each one less friendly than the last. Let him call. The second man sounded younger, eager. What's he gonna do? Admit he can't protect his own daughter? That Milano had to save her. That's exactly what makes this dangerous, idiota. We've humiliated him. You don't humiliate Robert Spencer and walk away clean. A pause. Then the younger one again, quieter, You think that's why he did it? The boss? To humiliate Spencer. I think Stefano Milano doesn't do anything without 3 reasons, and he only tells us one. The older man's footsteps moved closer to the door. I pressed back against the bookshelf, heart hammering. But keeping her here? That's not just strategy. That's personal. Personal how? Use your head. Spencer killed Sophia. Everyone knows it. Now Milano has Spencer's daughter sleeping under his roof, eating his food, owing him a debt he hasn't named yet. A low chuckle, dark and knowing. If I were Spencer, I'd be losing sleep wondering what that debt's gonna cost. They moved away down the corridor. I stayed frozen against the bookshelf, their words echoing in my skull. Sophia. I knew that name. Everyone in our world knew that name. Stefano Milano's fiancée, killed 5 years ago in a hit gone wrong. My father had denied involvement, but denial in our world meant nothing. Guilt was assumed. Proof was irrelevant. Was that what this was? Revenge wearing the mask of rescue? I thought I might be sick. You should sit down before you fall down. Stefano's voice came from the doorway, startling me so badly I gasped. He moved like a ghost for a man his size. You're still recovering. I'm fine. I straightened, ignoring the protest in my ribs. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. He entered the library, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. You heard them. Not a question. An acknowledgement. I lifted my chin. Is it true? Is this about Sophia? Something flickered in his eyes, pain, quickly shuttered. Everything is about Sophia. And nothing is about Sophia. The world isn't that simple, Elsie. Don't. The word came out sharper than intended. Don't talk to me like I'm naive. I grew up in this world same as you. I know how it works. I know what revenge looks like. Do you? He crossed to the window, that same predatory grace I was learning to recognize. Then tell me, is saving your life revenge? Is giving you a safe place when your own father won't revenge? Is making sure you're fed, protected, cared for, is that revenge? It is if you're planning to use me against him later. Stefano turned, and the look on his face made my breath catch. Not anger. Something rawer. More honest. Your father used you against yourself for 24 years. I'm simply offering you a different cage. At least mine has a view. Before I could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, expression grim. Boss. Message from Spencer. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Stefano took the phone, read whatever was on the screen. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only tell that betrayed emotion. What does it say? I asked, hating how my voice shook. Stefano's eyes met mine. For a moment, I saw something that looked almost like pity. Then he handed me the phone. The message was short. Brutal. Exactly like my father. If she chooses Milano's protection, she is no daughter of mine. She made her choice the moment she allowed him to touch her. Tell her she's dead to me. Tell her she's dead to the family. She wants to be a Milano's whore, she can rot in Italy. The words blurred. I blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall, but my hands shook as I held the phone. 24 years of being the perfect daughter, the obedient asset, the carefully controlled piece on his chessboard, erased in 3 sentences. Elsie, Stefano's voice was gentler than I'd heard it. Don't. I shoved the phone back at him, stepped away before he could see me break. Just don't. I made it to the door before my legs gave out. Strong arms caught me, Stefano, moving faster than should be possible, lowering me carefully to the leather sofa. Breathe, he commanded softly. Just breathe. But I couldn't. The air wouldn't come. My father had disowned me. Had called me that. And for what? For surviving? For being saved by the wrong man? He doesn't mean it, I whispered, knowing it was a lie. He's just angry. When I go home. You're not going home. Stefano crouched in front of me, his hands steady on my shoulders. There is no home to go to anymore. He made that clear. Then what am I supposed to do? The question came out broken. Where am I supposed to go? His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't felt fall. You stay here. You let me collect my debt. You learn what it means to choose yourself instead of letting other men choose for you. I don't have a choice. No, he agreed. But at least you're alive to hate me for it. I laughed, a horrible, jagged sound. Because he was right. My father had thrown me away the moment I became inconvenient. Stefano Milano, the monster I'd been taught to fear, was the only thing standing between me and complete annihilation. The enemy of my enemy wasn't my friend. But right now, he was all I had. The envelope arrived at breakfast on my 5th morning in the villa. Stefano slid it across the table without ceremony, his espresso untouched, his attention focused entirely on me. I stared at the cream-colored paper, expensive and unmarked, like it might detonate. What is this? Your debt. He leaned back in his chair, morning sunlight cutting across his face in sharp angles. The terms, clearly defined. I thought you'd appreciate the clarity. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, handwritten in precise script. Terms of debt. Elsie Spencer owes Stefano Milano 1 life, saved from fire and death on Highway 9. Repayment. She will remain under Milano protection until such time as she can prove she no longer needs it. Proof will be determined by her ability to survive 3 conditions. 1. Defend herself against physical threat. 2. Identify deception in negotiation. 3. Choose her own path without fear. Duration. Until debt is satisfied or voluntarily released. Signed, Stefano Milano. I read it twice. 3 times. This is insane. This is survival. He finally lifted his espresso, drank. Your father raised you to be decorative. Obedient. A pretty piece to be traded or displayed. I'm offering you something he never did, the ability to stand on your own. By keeping me prisoner? By keeping you alive long enough to learn the difference. He stood, gestured toward the door. Come. Your education starts now. The villa's basement wasn't what I expected. No wine cellar or storage, instead, a fully equipped training facility. Mats covered the floor. Weapons lined one wall in locked cases. A shooting range stretched into reinforced darkness. Stefano moved to the weapons case, unlocked it with a key from his pocket. He withdrew a handgun, checked it with practiced efficiency, then held it out to me. I didn't take it. I don't know how to use that. I know. That's why we're here. He waited, patient. Take it, Elsie. It won't bite. It might shoot me. Not if you respect it. His voice shifted, became instructional. A gun is a tool. Like a knife, like your voice, like your mind. It only has the power you give it. Now take it. I forced myself to reach out, felt the cold weight settle into my palm. Heavier than I expected. More real. Stefano moved behind me, close enough that I felt his breath against my hair. Your stance is wrong. Feet shoulder width apart. Dominant foot slightly back. His hands touched my shoulders, adjusted my position. Professional. Clinical. So why did my skin feel electric? Both hands on the grip. Firm but not strangling. He demonstrated, his hands covering mine briefly before pulling away. Arms extended but not locked. You're not trying to hold it at arm's length, you're creating a stable platform. For the next hour, he walked me through the mechanics. How to load, how to aim, how to breathe through the recoil. When I finally fired my first shot, wild, missing the target completely, the sound exploded through my skull despite the ear protection. Again, Stefano said. I fired. Missed. Again. Missed. Your breathing is wrong. You're anticipating the recoil. He moved behind me once more, his chest against my back, hands guiding mine. Inhale. Exhale halfway. Hold. Squeeze, don't pull the trigger. This time, the bullet hit paper. Not the center, but the target. Better. His voice was warm against my ear. Again. By the end of the session, my arms ached and my ears rang, but 3 shots had clustered near the center ring. Stefano nodded, something like approval in his expression. You're a quick study. I'm motivated. I set the gun down, hands shaking from adrenaline. By survival, not by whatever game you're playing. Good. He locked the weapons case. Survival is the only game worth playing. The lessons became routine. Mornings were physical shooting, hand-to-hand basics, how to spot exits and assess threats. Afternoons, Stefano taught me to read people. Everyone tells you who they are, he explained one day over lunch. We sat in his study, files spread across the desk. The question is whether you're paying attention. He showed me photographs of men in suits, taught me to spot the tells. The slight tension in a jaw that meant lying. The overcompensation of too much eye contact. The way hands moved when someone was hiding something. Your father never taught you this, he observed. Why? Because he didn't want me to see through him. The words came out bitter but true. Stefano's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Then he was a fool. The most dangerous weapon you have is your mind. Everything else is just backup. Our interactions shifted, subtle but undeniable. The hostility faded into something more complex, a grudging respect, an unexpected partnership. I stopped flinching when he entered a room. He stopped watching me like I might bolt. And I started noticing things. The scar along his collarbone, visible when his shirt collar shifted during training. The way he rubbed his left shoulder when he thought no one was watching, old injury probably. The discipline in everything he did, from how he drank his coffee to how he cleaned his weapons. Nothing wasted. Nothing careless. But mostly, I noticed the pain. It lived in his eyes during unguarded moments. When he thought I wasn't looking. When he stood at the window at sunset, drink in hand, lost somewhere I couldn't follow. The same pain I'd seen the day his men mentioned Sofia. One evening, 2 weeks into my training, I found him in the library. He stood before a photograph on the shelf, a woman beautiful, laughing, caught in a moment of pure joy. Sofia, I said quietly. He didn't turn. You should be resting. I've been resting for 2 weeks. I'm fine. I moved closer, studied the photograph. She looked happy. Loved. She was beautiful. She was everything. His voice was raw. And your father took her from me. I'm sorry. Are you? Now he did turn, and the look in his eyes pinned me in place. Sorry for her death? Or sorry you're here because of it? Both. Neither. I don't know. I met his gaze, refusing to look away. I know what it's like to lose everything you thought was permanent. My father disowned me with a text message. So maybe I understand more than you think. Stefano studied me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he poured a second glass of whiskey, held it out. To losses we didn't choose. I took the glass. Our fingers brushed. And debts we didn't ask for. Those two. We drank in silence, standing side by side, 2 people bound by violence and circumstance and something neither of us was ready to name. But I felt it. In the space between us. In the way his presence had shifted from threatening to something else. Something dangerous in an entirely different way. Stefano Milano was teaching me to survive. I was terrified I might be learning to stay. The nightmares started on the 16th night. I woke gasping, tangled in silk sheets, the phantom smell of burning metal filling my lungs. The crash played on repeat behind my eyes, headlights, impact, fire. But this time, when the door ripped open, no one was there. Just flames and darkness and the certainty of dying alone. I couldn't stay in that room. Couldn't breathe within those four walls. The villa was quiet at 2 in the morning, only the soft footfalls of night guards patrolling the grounds. I wrapped myself in a robe and wandered, seeking space, air, anything to quiet the panic still thrumming through my veins. I found Stefano on the terrace. He sat in shadows, a crystal tumbler of whiskey catching moonlight, still dressed despite the hour. He didn't turn when I approached, but his voice cut through the night. "Can't sleep. Bad dreams." I hesitated at the threshold, suddenly uncertain. "I can go. Stay." He gestured to the chair beside him. "The company of insomnia is better than the company of ghosts." I sat, drawing my knees up, making myself small. We existed in silence for a while, the kind that felt less like absence and more like understanding. Finally, I asked, "Do you have them too?" "Nightmares. Every night for 5 years." He drank, the admission delivered without self-pity. "Just fact. You learn to function on broken sleep." "Is that what Sophia gave you? Broken sleep and ghosts?" His jaw tightened. I thought he might not answer, might retreat behind that controlled mask he wore so well. But then he spoke, voice low and threaded with something raw. "Sophia gave me the only peace I've ever known. The nightmares came after. Tell me about her." The request was bold, maybe too bold, but the darkness made me brave. Not the woman in the photograph. The real her. Stefano's fingers traced the rim of his glass, a rare gesture of uncertainty. "She was a teacher. Literature. Can you imagine? A mafia boss and a woman who taught poetry to teenagers. A ghost of a smile. She hated my world. Hated the violence, the power games, all of it. But she loved me anyway. Said she could see the man I was before the world made me into this." "What happened to her?" "What always happens in this life." He drained his glass, set it down with controlled precision. "Your father and mine had a truce, fragile but holding. Then someone got greedy. A shipment was hijacked. Both sides blamed the other. The truce shattered. I waited, barely breathing. Sophia was driving to her parents' house for Sunday dinner. Wrong place. Wrong time. The car bomb was meant for me." His voice didn't waver, but his hands did, just slightly, before he clenched them into fists. They found pieces of her scattered across 3 blocks. Identified her by a ring I'd given her for her birthday. Just the ring. That's all that was left intact. Nausea rolled through me. My father. Denied involvement. They always do. Stefano finally looked at me, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. But it was his men. His orders. Maybe not intentional, maybe they truly believed they were targeting me. But her blood is on Spencer hands either way. "Is that why you saved me?" The question came out small. "Revenge." "I don't know." The honesty surprised us both. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, suddenly looking every one of his years. "When I saw you in that car, fire spreading, trapped, I saw her. Not physically. But the moment. The helplessness. The certainty of death coming for someone who didn't deserve it. So you saved me because you couldn't save her." "I saved you because I couldn't not save you." He turned his head, eyes finding mine in the darkness. "And every day since, I've been trying to understand if that makes me weak or just human." The vulnerability in that confession cracked something open in my chest. This man, this dangerous, controlled, feared mafia boss, was just as broken as I was. Just as trapped by circumstances and bloodlines and decisions made before we were old enough to choose differently. "You're not weak," I said softly. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "Don't." The word came sharp, a warning. Stefano stood abruptly, putting distance between us. "Don't make me into something I'm not, Elsie." "I'm not. You are." He faced me, and the mask was back, that controlled facade firmly in place. "You're young. Vulnerable. I saved your life and now you're confusing gratitude with something else. It's natural. It's also dangerous." I stood too, anger flashing hot. "Don't patronize me. I know the difference between gratitude and," I stopped, uncertain how to finish. "And what?" He moved closer, deliberate, predatory. "Say it. And whatever this is." I gestured between us, frustrated. This thing that happens when you adjust my stance during training. When your hand lingers a second too long. When you look at me like I'm something more than just a debt to be collected. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" I stepped forward, closing the distance he'd created. "Reckless. Stupid. Then why does your voice change when you talk to me? Why do you watch me when you think I'm not looking? Why did you tell me about Sophia when you've never told anyone else?" "Because you asked." But his voice was rougher now, less controlled. "Because it was late and I was tired and I made a mistake." "Liar." The accusation hung between us. "You don't make mistakes. You said so yourself. Everything you do has 3 reasons. So tell me the real one. Why did you really save me?" Stefano's control cracked. He closed the remaining distance in one stride, his hand cupping my face with surprising gentleness. For a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to. Needed him to. Instead, he rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed, voice breaking. "Because I'm tired of losing people. Because when I saw you dying, something in me refused to let death win again. Because maybe, just maybe, saving you could save something in me too." My hands found his chest, felt his heart racing beneath expensive fabric. "Stefano." "But I can't." He pulled back, the mask slamming down again, harder this time. "I can't give you what you're starting to want. I'm poison, Elsie. Everyone I love dies. Sophia died. My mother died. Even my goddamn dog died. I don't get happy endings. I get blood and ghosts and nightmares that never stop. I'm not asking for happy endings." My voice shook but held. "I'm asking you to stop pushing me away when we both know you don't want to. What I want doesn't matter." He stepped back, creating distance that felt like miles. "You're here to repay a debt. To learn to survive. That's all. Anything else is just your mind playing tricks because I'm the only person in your world right now who hasn't abandoned you." The words hit like a slap. True enough to hurt. But not entirely true. I saw the lie in the tension of his shoulders, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. "You're a coward," I said quietly. That made him look. "Excuse me." "You heard me. You faced down rival families, you've built an empire on violence and strategy, but you're terrified of this. Of feeling something real." I moved toward the door, done with the conversation. "Sophia loved you despite your world. Maybe you should stop using her death as an excuse to never feel anything again." I left him standing on that terrace, alone with his whiskey and his ghosts. But as I walked away, I heard the crash of crystal against stone, and I knew I'd hit truth. The question was whether truth would bring us together or destroy us both. The file shouldn't have been left out. That's what I thought later, trying to reconstruct how something so damning could have been so carelessly accessible. But Stefano had been called away urgently, some crisis with a shipment at the docks, and in his haste, he'd left his study unlocked, papers scattered across the desk. I'd only gone in looking for a book. The library's selection on structural engineering was disappointingly thin, and I remembered seeing architectural texts on Stefano's shelves. Harmless. Innocent. The manila folder was half buried under shipping manifests, unremarkable except for the tab labeled in Stefano's precise handwriting, Spencer, Highway 9. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. Inside, photographs of my wrecked Mercedes, taken from angles the police wouldn't have used. Close-ups of the rear bumper, crushed and scraped. Tire marks on the asphalt, measured and analyzed. And a mechanic's report, stamped and official, with key sentences highlighted in yellow. Impact to rear bumper consistent with deliberate collision at high speed. Brake line severed, clean cut, not wear-related. Steering mechanism tampered with, damage pre-crash. My vision tunneled. The words swam, rearranged, refused to make sense even as my mind screamed their meaning. Not an accident. Not chance. Not bad luck on a Friday night drive. Murder. Someone had sabotaged my car. Someone had tried to kill me. The page underneath made my knees buckle. A transcript, recorded phone conversation, dated 2 days before the crash. RS, she's becoming a problem. Too independent. Too visible. Milano's been asking questions about her. Unknown, what do you want done? RS, make it clean. An accident. She drives that highway every Friday. Handles like a dream until it doesn't. Unknown, and if Milano suspects? RS, then he'll know what happens when people look too closely at what's mine. RS. Robert Spencer. My father. I made it to the waste bin before I vomited. I was still on the floor, shaking, when voices carried from the hallway. Stefano, back earlier than expected, and Marco with him. I should have moved, hidden, left. Instead, I stayed frozen, the file clutched to my chest. Confirmed it was Spencer's order, Marco was saying. The mechanic who did the work got nervous, started talking. We persuaded him to talk more. How much more? Stefano's voice, cold and clinical. Everything. Spencer paid him $50,000 to tamper with the car. Specific instructions, make it look like driver error. He wanted her scared first, the brake failure, the steering issues. Then the collision to finish it. A pause. Then Stefano quieter, he tried to murder his own daughter. Looks that way. Our source says Spencer's been paranoid for months. Thought you were using her to gather information, that she was feeding you family secrets. Decided eliminating her was cleaner than risking the exposure. And I just happened to be there. Stefano's footsteps paced. How convenient. Boss, you couldn't have known. I suspected. The admission was hard, sharp. The crash site was too perfect. The timing too precise. But I didn't want to believe even Robert Spencer would go that far. What do we do with the mechanic? Pay him. Double what Spencer did. Then make sure he disappears somewhere Spencer can't find him. I want him alive as insurance, but gone. And the girl. Silence stretched. I held my breath, pressed against the desk, praying they wouldn't come in. She doesn't need to know, Stefano said finally. Not yet. She's already lost enough. With respect, boss, she's going to find out eventually. Better it comes from you than somewhere else. I know. Stefano sounded tired, ancient. I just need time to figure out how to tell someone their father tried to kill them. Their footsteps moved away down the hall. I stayed on the floor, surrounded by evidence of my father's betrayal, and felt my entire world crack apart. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to shift, casting new shadows across the damning photographs. Long enough for shock to metabolize into something harder, sharper. Rage. Stefano found me still holding the file when he returned an hour later. He stopped in the doorway, took in the scene, me on the floor, papers scattered, tears I hadn't felt cry dried on my cheeks, and closed his eyes. Elsie. You knew. My voice sounded hollow, distant. You've known since the beginning. I suspected. I didn't have proof until 3 days ago. 3 days. I laughed, a broken sound. You've had proof for 3 days and you didn't tell me. I was trying to find the right way. There is no right way to tell someone their father tried to murder them. I stood, legs unsteady, and threw the file at him. Papers scattered. He cut my brake lines. He paid someone to sabotage my car. He wanted me dead, Stefano. His own daughter. And you knew. Yes. He didn't flinch from the accusation. I knew. And I saved you anyway. Why? The question came out raw. If you suspected, if you knew what he'd done, why save the daughter of the man who killed Sophia? Why not just let me burn and call it karma? Stefano moved closer, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. Because you're not your father. Because that night, in the flames, I didn't see Robert Spencer's daughter. I saw a terrified woman who deserved to live. Because, he stopped, jaw working. Because I couldn't let another person die because of the war between us. Not when I could stop it. So what am I? I gestured at the papers, at myself. A victim you saved out of guilt? A pawn you're keeping to hurt him? What's my purpose here, Stefano? Your purpose is to survive. He closed the distance between us, hands gentle on my shoulders. Your father threw you away. Tried to erase you. But you're still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. That's not because of him or me. That's because of you. I wanted to pull away. Wanted to rage and break things and deny the truth staring me in the face. But my body betrayed me, swaying toward him instead, seeking the only solid thing in a world that had just turned to quicksand. He was supposed to love me, I whispered against Stefano's chest. He's my father. He was supposed to protect me. I know. His arms came around me, steady and sure. I know, ragazza. I'm sorry. The text message, when he disowned me, that wasn't anger. That was relief. The realization hit like a fresh wound. He was relieved I chose to stay here. Relieved he didn't have to try again. Probably. I pulled back enough to see his face. How do you live with it? Knowing the people who should love you are the ones who hurt you most. Something in his expression shifted, recognition, understanding. You stop expecting love from people incapable of giving it. And you learn to recognize it in unexpected places. His thumb brushed my cheek, wiping away a tear. The gesture was so tender, so at odds with everything I knew about Stefano Milano, that it broke something loose in my chest. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted. Spencer's daughter is dead. But I don't know what I am instead. You're Elsie, Stefano said simply. You're the woman who learned to shoot in 2 weeks. Who reads people like books. Who called me a coward and was right. His hands framed my face. You're not defined by the man who failed you. You're defined by how you survive him. And if I don't want to just survive? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. If I want something more? Then we figure it out. His forehead touched mine. Together. It wasn't a declaration. Wasn't a promise. But it was real, and right now, real was all I had left to hold on to. Outside, thunder rumbled. Another storm coming. But for the first time since the crash, I wasn't afraid of burning. The attack came at dawn. I was in the library, unable to sleep, watching sunrise paint the Tuscan hills gold when the first explosion shattered the eastern wall. The blast wave threw me backward, books raining from shelves, glass erupting inward in a deadly shower. My ears rang. Smoke billowed. And through the chaos, gunfire erupted like a symphony of violence. Stefano burst through the door, weapon drawn, blood on his collar. "Stay down." He crossed to me in 3 strides. "Hold me upright." "Can you run?" "Yes." "Then run. Now." Marco's waiting at the safe room. Another explosion, closer. The floor shook. Stefano shoved me toward the door, his body shielding mine. We made it into the hallway as armed men in tactical gear rounded the corner. Not Stefano's men. Spencer's. Time slowed. I saw Stefano raise his weapon, saw the muzzle flash, saw the first man drop. Training took over, his training, drilled into me over weeks. I dropped to a crouch, made myself small, assessed exits. "Go." Stefano's voice cut through the gunfire. "Kitchen, through the servants' passage, don't stop." I ran. Behind me, more shots. Shouting in Italian and English. The villa had become a war zone, and I was prey caught in the crossfire. The kitchen was chaos. 2 of Stefano's men had taken positions behind the marble island, trading fire with intruders trying to force entry through the terrace doors. One saw me, jerked his head toward the pantry. "There. Go." I didn't hesitate. Through the pantry, finding the hidden door Stefano had shown me weeks ago during one of his Know Your Exits lessons. The passage was narrow, dark, stone walls pressing close. My hands scraped against rough mortar as I felt my way forward. A crash behind me. Footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Found her. North Passage. My heart stopped. Then started again, double time. I ran faster, emerged into a secondary hallway near the servants' quarters. Empty. Which way was the safe room? Left? Right? A hand clamped over my mouth from behind. Panic exploded. I fought exactly as Stefano had taught me, elbow back hard into ribs, heel stomping down on instep. The grip loosened. I spun, saw the gunman's face, saw his weapon coming up. No time to think. Only react. I grabbed his wrist, twisted exactly the way Stefano had drilled into muscle memory. The gun discharged, deafening, bullet punching into the ceiling. I drove my knee up, not graceful, not perfect, but effective. He doubled over. I grabbed a heavy candlestick from the hall table and swung. The impact jarred my arms. He went down hard. I stood over him, shaking, the candlestick still raised, unable to believe what I'd just done. I'd fought back. Won. Survived. Elsie. Marco appeared at the hallway's end, weapon raised, then lowered when he saw me. "Jesus Christ, you okay?" "I think so." My voice didn't sound like mine. "Where's Stefano?" "Handling the main assault." "Come on, we need to." The window beside us exploded. Marco shoved me down, his body covering mine as bullets tore through plaster and wood. When the barrage stopped, he wasn't moving. "Marco." I shook him. Blood bloomed across his shoulder. "Marco." His eyes opened, unfocused. Safe room. End of hall. Code 1-9-4-3. Sophia's birthday. He coughed, red on his lips. "Go. Boss'll kill me if you die." I wanted to stay. Should have stayed. But his eyes were urgent, and another explosion rocked the villa's foundation. I ran. The safe room was reinforced steel disguised as a linen closet. I punched in the code with trembling fingers, 1-9-4-3, and the door clicked open. Inside, communications equipment, weapons, medical supplies. Everything needed to wait out a siege. Through the security monitors, I watched the battle unfold. Stefano moved through the villa like death itself. No wasted movement, no hesitation. He fired with surgical precision, each shot dropping a target. 2 men tried to flank him. He pivoted, double-tapped both before they could aim. Reloaded without looking. Kept moving. He was terrifying. Beautiful. Completely in his element. But there were too many. Spencer had sent an army. I watched the eastern wing catch fire, flames spreading fast. Watched Stefano's men fall back, coordinating defense from secondary positions. Watched my father's soldiers advance room by room, destroying everything in their path. They were coming for me. All of this, the death, the destruction, was because Robert Spencer wanted his daughter back. Or wanted her dead. At this point, I wasn't sure which. The monitor showing the hallway outside the safe room flickered. Movement. 3 armed men, checking doors systematically. They'd find me in minutes. I looked at the weapons cabinet. At the handgun Stefano had taught me to use. At the choice between hiding and fighting. You're not your father's pawn anymore, Stefano's voice echoed in memory. You're a woman who survives. I loaded the gun. When they breached the safe room door, explosive charge turning reinforced steel into twisted metal, I was ready. The first man caught a bullet in the chest. The second hesitated, fatal mistake. I fired twice more. He dropped. The third was faster, smarter. He rolled left, came up firing. Pain exploded in my shoulder, spinning me backward. I hit the ground hard, weapon skittering away. He advanced, gun trained on my head. Spencer sends his regards. Tell him to go to hell. The shot came from behind him. His head snapped forward, body crumpling. Stefano stood in the destroyed doorway, weapon still raised, face splattered with blood and soot and fury. Our eyes met across the carnage. Then he was moving, crossing to me, hands frantically checking the wound in my shoulder. How bad? Through and through, I think. The adrenaline was wearing off, pain flooding in. Marco. Alive. Stabilized. He ripped fabric from his shirt, pressed it against the wound. You fought back. You taught me to. Something flickered in his eyes, pride, fear, something fiercer. You shouldn't have had to. But I did. I gripped his wrist with my good hand. And I'm still here. An explosion from the floor above shook dust from the ceiling. Stefano lifted me carefully, cradled me against his chest. Can you hold on? Always. We emerged into a villa transformed into a battlefield. Bodies of Spencer's men and Stefano's littered marble floors. Fire consumed the eastern wing, smoke thick and choking. But the gunfire had stopped. The assault was over. Stefano's men were winning. On the front steps, Stefano set me down carefully, kept one arm around me as we watched his soldiers round up the few survivors. The sun had fully risen now, painting everything in gold and red, beautiful and horrifying. He tried to kill you, Stefano said quietly. In your own home. While under my protection. He failed. I leaned into him, exhausted, hurting, alive. We both survived. This isn't over. His jaw was set, eyes hard. Spencer just declared war. And wars like this, they only end one way. I knew what he meant. Blood for blood. Death for death. The cycle that had taken Sophia, that had nearly taken me, that would keep spinning until someone ended it permanently. Then end it, I said. Stefano looked at me, really looked, seeing past the blood and smoke to the woman who'd stopped being a pawn the moment she picked up a weapon. I will, he promised. For Sophia. For you. For both of us. The villa burned behind us, a funeral pyre for the life I'd left behind. Ahead, war waited. But I wasn't afraid anymore. The medic finished bandaging my shoulder as the last fires were extinguished. 32 stitches, antibiotics, Pain medication I refused because I needed to stay sharp. Around us, Stefano's men worked in grim silence, removing bodies, securing the perimeter, counting their dead. 5 lost. 12 wounded. The villa was a ruin. But we'd won. Stefano stood at the terrace edge, silhouetted against smoke-stained sky, phone pressed to his ear. I watched him end one call, immediately start another. Coordinating. Commanding. The Mafia boss in his element, orchestrating the aftermath of war. But his shoulders were too rigid. His movements too controlled. I'd learned to read him over the past weeks, to see past the mask he wore for everyone else. He was holding himself together by sheer will. When the last call ended, he stood motionless, staring at the destroyed gardens. I approached slowly, my footsteps deliberate on broken glass. Stefano. He didn't turn. You should be resting. So should you. I have work to do. Spencer will regroup, try again. Stefano. I moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Look at me. He did finally, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. All the control, all the careful armor, gone. What remained was a man stripped bare by violence and fear and something more dangerous than both. I almost lost you, he said, voice rough. When I saw them breach the safe room, when I heard shots, he stopped, jaw working. I thought I was too late. Again. But you weren't. This time. His hand rose, fingers ghosting over the bandage on my shoulder. What about next time? Spencer won't stop. He'll send more men, better men. He'll burn the world down to reclaim what he thinks is his. I'm not his. The words came fierce, certain. Not anymore. Maybe I never was. Then what are you? Stefano's hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. Because I need to know, Elsie. I need to understand what the hell I'm fighting for. You're asking me? I turned into his palm, held his wrist. You saved me. You kept me. You taught me to survive. You defined the debt, Stefano. So tell me, what am I to you? His control cracked. He pulled me closer, careful of my injury, his other hand sliding into my hair. You're supposed to be revenge. That's what I told myself at first. Spencer's daughter, owing me a debt I could use however I wanted. Poetic justice for Sophia. And now you're the reason I can't sleep. The reason I check security feeds 20 times a night to make sure you're safe. The reason he stopped, forehead pressing against mine. You're not revenge anymore. You're the thing I'm most afraid of losing. My heart hammered. Stefano. You were right, he continued, words tumbling out like confession. That night on the terrace. You said I was a coward. You were right. I've been hiding behind your debt, behind teaching you survival, behind the excuse that you're just a pawn in my game against your father. His eyes opened, found mine. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying than any of that. What's the truth? That you stopped being Robert Spencer's daughter the moment you picked up that gun and fought back. That you stopped being my debt the moment I realized I'd burn this whole world down to keep you safe. His grip tightened. You're not my enemy's daughter anymore, Elsie. You're my choice. My future. He stopped, the word catching in his throat. Say it, I whispered. Whatever you're afraid to say, say it. You're my salvation. The admission came raw, broken. Sophia's death destroyed me. Made me into something cold and calculating and half alive. But you walked into my world bleeding and defiant, and you made me feel again. Made me want something beyond revenge and territory and this endless fucking war. Tears burned my eyes. What do you want? You. Simple. Devastating. I want you. Not as a debt. Not as strategy. Just, you. waking up in my bed, standing beside me, choosing me the way I've already chosen you. Stefano, my voice broke. But I can't ask that. He pulled back slightly, giving me space. I can't ask you to tie yourself to this life, to this world. You deserve freedom. You deserve a chance to be someone other than Spencer's daughter or Milano's. I kissed him, pressed my lips to his mid-sentence, swallowing his words and his doubts and his careful control. For a hot beat, he froze. Then his arms came around me, careful of my shoulder, still so careful, and he kissed me back with 5 weeks of restrained longing. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was desperate and claiming and tasted like smoke and blood and finally, truth. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, I kept my hands fisted in his shirt. I don't want freedom, I said against his mouth. I don't want to be someone other than who I am right now, in this moment. I want you, Stefano Milano. I want this, whatever this is. I want to choose you the way you chose me. Elsie. I'm not confused. I'm not grateful. I'm not a victim clinging to her savior. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I see you. The violence, the darkness, the broken pieces you hide from everyone else. And I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you anyway. This life will hurt you. His hands framed my face. My world is blood and war and danger that never ends. Your world is also loyalty and strength and a man who taught me to survive when everyone else wanted me dead. I covered his hands with mine. My father tried to kill me. You saved me. Then you made me someone who could save herself. You think I don't know what that means? It means you owe me a debt. No. I kissed him again, softer this time. It means I love you. The words hung between us, enormous and terrifying. Stefano's eyes closed, a shudder running through his frame. When he opened them again, they were wet. You can't. Too late. Elsie. I love you, I repeated, fiercer. I love your darkness and your scars and the way you pretend not to care when you care more than anyone I've ever known. I love that you see me as something other than a pawn. I love that you taught me to fight instead of just protecting me. I love. He kissed me silent, deep and thorough and claiming. When he pulled back, his smile was devastating. You're impossible. I learned from the best. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I grinned through tears. But you saved me anyway, so now you're stuck with me. Stefano laughed. Actual laughter, genuine and warm. Then his expression shifted, became serious. Intent. He took my face in both hands, thumbs brushing away tears. Then let me redefine the debt, he said quietly. No more conditions. No more tests. You've proven everything you needed to prove. What does that mean? It means you're free, Elsie. The debt is paid. You can leave. Go anywhere. Start over. I'll give you money, protection, a new identity, whatever you need. My heart seized. You're letting me go? I'm giving you the choice I never gave you before. His eyes held mine. Stay because you want to. Not because you owe me. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you choose this life. Choose me. I didn't hesitate. I choose you. Even knowing what that means? The danger, I choose you, I repeated. Every day. Every risk. Every consequence. I choose you, Stefano. His control finally shattered completely. He pulled me against him, buried his face in my hair, held me like I was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. Ti amo, he whispered. God help me, Elsie, I love you. We stood there, two broken people made whole by fire and blood and choices that defied every rule we'd been raised to follow. The villa lay in ruins around us. War still waited. My father would come again. But none of it mattered. Because I'd stopped being Robert Spencer's daughter. And I'd become Stefano Milano's future. 6 weeks after the siege, I woke to Stefano's arm draped across my waist and sunlight painting our bedroom gold. Our bedroom. The possessive still sent warmth through my chest. I slipped from the sheets carefully, not wanting to wake him. He'd been up late the night before, finalizing what Marco called the Spencer situation. I didn't ask for details. Didn't need to. The headlines told me everything. Federal investigation into Spencer operations. Assets frozen. Key associates turning state's evidence. My father's empire was crumbling. Not by Stefano's hand directly, he was too smart for that. But by the careful surgical exposure of every illegal operation, every corrupt official, every body buried in shallow graves. Information leaked to the right agencies. Evidence appearing in the right hands. Robert Spencer was being dismantled by his own sins, with just enough pressure from Milano resources to ensure he couldn't climb back out. Poetic justice, Stefano had called it. I called it mercy. He could have killed my father. Part of me had expected him to. But Stefano understood something my father never had. The cruelest punishment wasn't death. It was watching everything you'd built turn to ash while you lived. I wrapped myself in Stefano's shirt. It hung to mid-thigh, smelled like him, felt like home, and padded to the balcony. The villa had been rebuilt. Stronger. More secure. But also more beautiful, as if Stefano had decided that surviving war meant choosing to live more fully. New gardens bloomed where fire had scorched. New windows let in more light. The scars remained, bullet holes in marble, scorched stone, but they'd been incorporated into the design rather than hidden. Battle wounds, Stefano had said. Reminders that we survived. I leaned against the balcony railing, watching dawn spread across Tuscan hills. My shoulder ached where the bullet had torn through, would always ache when rain came, the doctor said. Another scar. Another reminder. My fingers found the rosary around my neck. Stefano had given it to me 3 weeks ago. Sophia's rosary, silver and delicate, worn smooth by her hands. I tried to refuse, it felt too sacred, too much, but he'd insisted. She would have liked you, he'd said, fastening the clasp himself. Would have loved that you called me a coward and meant it. Would have approved of you choosing this life with your eyes wide open. You don't know that. I do. Sophia believed in second chances. In rebirth. In love being stronger than legacy. His hands had lingered on my shoulders. Wear it. Not to replace her. But to honor what she taught me, that choosing love over revenge is the bravest thing we can do. So I wore it. Every day. A symbol of the woman who'd loved Stefano before me, and the choice to build something new from the ashes of old wars. You're up early. Stefano's voice, rough with sleep, came from behind me. Arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against his bare chest. Couldn't sleep. Just thinking. I leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my spine. About how different everything is. Different good or different bad? Different alive. I turned in his arms, looked up at him. 6 weeks hadn't softened his edges, hadn't made him less dangerous. But the shadows in his eyes had lifted. He smiled more. Laughed more. Lived more. I've been thinking about the debt. His expression shuttered slightly. Elsie. Let me finish. I pressed a finger to his lips. That night on Highway 9, you told me you'd collect your debt later. And you did. But not the way I expected. What did you expect? Revenge. Strategy. Using me against my father. I traced the tattoos on his chest, following familiar patterns. Instead, you collected something else entirely. What's that? I met his eyes. You collected me. Not as a pawn. Not as leverage. Just Me. The woman I became because you refused to let me die as the woman I was. Stefano's hands tightened on my waist. Is that a complaint? It's a thank you. I rose on my toes, kissed him softly. You saved me twice, Stefano. Once from the fire. Once from the life I was living before it. I was drowning long before that crash, drowning in my father's expectations, in a role I never chose, in a cage made of obligations and fear. And now I'm free. I spread my arms, encompassing the villa, the dawn, the life we were building. Free to choose. Free to stay. Free to love you without apology or shame. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Everything else is just noise. I cupped his face, felt the scratch of morning stubble. I love you. You love me. We survived. The rest is just details. Stefano pulled me closer, buried his face in my neck. The underworld is talking, he murmured against my skin, saying Milano's gone soft. That I'm distracted. Vulnerable. Are you? Completely. He pulled back, grinned. Also more dangerous than I've ever been. Because now I have something to protect. Someone worth burning the world for. Don't burn the world. I just got comfortable in it. He laughed, the sound rich and warm. Then I'll just burn the parts that threaten you. Such a romantic. You chose me. You don't get to complain about the methods. Fair point. We stood there as the sun climbed higher, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. Below, the villa came to life, staff preparing breakfast, guards changing shifts, the normal rhythms of a household that had learned to blend luxury with warfare. Do you miss it? Stefano asked quietly. Your old life? No. The answer came without hesitation. I don't miss being Robert Spencer's daughter. Don't miss the fear or the control or the constant performance. I don't even miss the parts one thought I loved, the safety, the predictability. What do you miss? Nothing. Because everything I need is right here. Stefano's eyes softened. Ti amo, Elsie Milano. Milano. He'd been calling me that more often lately. Not officially, we hadn't married, hadn't made it legal, but in the ways that mattered in his world. Introducing me to associates. Including me in decisions. Standing beside me as an equal rather than a possession. I like the sound of that, I admitted. Elsie Milano. Then make it official. I blinked. What? Marry me. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Not because of debt or duty. Not because you need my protection. Marry me because you want to. Because choosing each other once wasn't enough. My heart stuttered. Stefano. I don't have a ring. Didn't plan this. He smiled, sheepish. But standing here, watching you wear Sophia's rosary and looking at me like I'm something good instead of something broken, I don't want to wait. I want you to be mine in every way that matters. I already am yours. Then let the whole world know it. I should have hesitated. Should have asked for time, for planning, for something more romantic than a dawn proposal on a battle-scarred balcony. But I'd learned something in the past weeks. Overthinking was for people who weren't sure. And I'd never been more certain of anything. Yes. His smile could have lit the entire villa. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be Elsie Milano officially. Yes to all of it. I pulled him down for a kiss. Now stop looking so surprised. You knew I'd say yes. Hoped. Didn't know. Then you're not as good at reading people as you think. He laughed against my mouth, kissed me deeper, and I tasted joy and promise and the future we were choosing together. When we finally pulled apart, the sun had fully risen. A new day. A new beginning. You know what the best part is? I asked, playing with the rosary at my neck. What's that? You told me that night that you'd collect your debt later. Everyone assumed it would be something terrible, vengeance, leverage, blood. And instead, I smiled, pulling him back toward the bedroom. Instead you collected a future, a partner, a life beyond revenge. Is that what I collected? That's what we both collected. I stopped at the threshold, looked back at him. You saved my life, Stefano. And I saved yours right back. We're even now. No debts. No debts. Just choices. His eyes held mine, warm and certain and home. I can live with that. We stepped inside together, leaving the dawn behind. Somewhere in New Jersey, my father sat in a federal holding cell, his empire reduced to legal paperwork and testimony. The man who'd tried to kill me had destroyed himself instead. But I didn't think about him anymore. Didn't waste energy on anger or grief for what should have been. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all: you can't choose your blood, but you can choose your family. You can't change your past, but you can decide your future. And I'd chosen Stefano. He'd collected his debt, just like he promised. But it wasn't money, or blood, or territory, or revenge. It was me. And I'd collected him right back.